evening. Our top stories tonight: news around the NFL, including the Houston Texans being stripped of a 5th-round pick for messing around with the salary cap, all the way back to Deshaun Watson. We also have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. They redo their deals. Keenan Allen officially sticking with the Los Angeles Chargers. And finally, we have a preview of the Cincinnati Bengals. The window for Joe Burrow, it's not closing when he signs that new contract. The window for the Cincinnati Bengals is going to exist as long as Joe Burrow is their quarterback. Oh, and I forgot. All that and much, much more on Player Profiler Today. But, of course, I am not live. Busy stuff going on. Lots of work at the day job. But you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about news around the NFL, starting with the Houston Texans. They have been stripped a 5th-round pick and $175,000. So this is nothing. The 5th-round pick hurts more than the cash. The cash really means nothing for these NFL teams. But Houston Texans, they lose that 5th-round pick because apparently they were allowing or paying for Deshaun Watson to have a private workout facility during COVID, and that's something to do with the salary cap. I don't understand it completely. I would have to talk to Anand Nanduri, and maybe the Houston Texans should have talked to Anand Nanduri too to make sure that they were all hunky-dory. Of course, they don't. They don't talk to Anand. They do the wrong thing, and the Texans get punished for it. But a bunch of other teams got rewarded. We got compensatory picks. The 49ers get 7 compensatory picks, 7 extra draft picks for the San Francisco 49ers. And you can trade those picks now too. So the 49ers, lots of draft capital. They can move up, they can move down, all around the draft. We also have a bunch of 3rd-round picks that were given to teams because of this compensatory formula. 3 of those picks are to the 49ers. They get 1 for Robert Saleh and Martin Mayhew leaving. They get 1 for Mike McDaniel leaving, and they get 1 for the combination of D'Amico Ryans and Rand Carthen leaving. I don't know if it's both of them or if they get another next year for those leavings. Well, Mike McDaniel and Robert Saleh will be done. They will be out of extra picks for him, because the way it works, if you hire a minority coach or an executive to be your head coach or to be your general manager, then the team you signed them from, they'll get 2 3rd-round picks in compensatory packages. So for the 49ers, they get 1 for Mike McDaniel, D'Amico Ryan, Rand Carthen. They'll get those next year too. It's an interesting process. I don't fully understand it, but I'm here to tell you, 49ers swimming in draft picks. And the not the San Francisco 49ers, the Los Angeles Chargers, they are pretty much back. They are ready to roll out that same offense as last year, but hopefully they add a little bit of speed, because I'm thrilled that Keenan Allen is back. I am thrilled they redid his contract, restructured it. Likely keeps Keenan Allen around next year too, because by restructuring, that creates a massive cap hit for 2024 if they were to cut him. And I just don't see them doing that. I think Keenan Allen is going to be around for the next 2 years with Justin Herbert, which really increases his dynasty value. And just hope that the Chargers can get a speedy wide receiver, maybe a Trey Palmer, maybe Jalen Hyatt, who doesn't have elite speed, but fast enough. One of those guys, or as I was saying last night on Trade Gods, maybe Deshaun Jackson. We also have Phil Jackson, or not Phil Jackson, sorry, combining the 2 players' names. Gabe Jackson gets cut. The right guard for the Seattle Seahawks, he has been cut. They save over $6 million by cutting him. And they just signed his backup, or his former backup, Phil Haynes. Now you see where I got the Phil Jackson. Phil Haynes, Gabe Jackson. So Phil Haynes, they signed him to a 1-year, $4 million deal. Previously, he was the backup, but this past year, he was kind of a part-time starter. Phil Haynes and Gabe Jackson, they would rotate. Gabe Jackson would start the game. Phil Haynes would come in because Jackson was not fully healthy. He was coming off some knee injuries. And so Haynes steps in, and now he's going to be a full-time starter. At least that's the plan for the Seattle Seahawks. The plan for the Las Vegas Raiders is to completely run it back. Exact same backfield. They re-signed Amir Abdullah, so now he goes to RB2 behind Josh Jacobs. Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden's back, and Zamir White is back as well. All 4 running backs back for the Las Vegas Raiders. I would be surprised now if they add one in free agency in the draft, because Josh McDaniels loves Brandon Bolden. He's not cutting him. He's a core special teamer, and he trusts him in the offense. Unless Zamir White is the odd man out. Sheesh. What a world we live in. And we also live in a world where the Cincinnati Bengals, their window is open. Their window for a Super Bowl is going to stay open past this year, too. Because right now, the Cincinnati Bengals, they are doing great in cap space. They have $34.6 million to spend, and they've got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, he's going to sign to a contract extension. They're going to hammer out a deal sometime this offseason. But it's not just going to be Joe Burrow. There's a bunch of quarterbacks that are getting paid this offseason. And when you redo a contract, when you sign an extension, the cap this year doesn't really change. Even next year, the cap's not going to be an issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. It'll depend on how long this contract is signed for. But Joe Burrow, it's not going to be big money on the salary cap for quite a while. So, Joe Burrow, the window is open. The window is open for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. We also have Joe Mixon. And what's going on with Joe Mixon? So there were a lot of rumors with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had a shots fired outside of his home in Cincinnati. And someone, a teenager, was shot in the leg. We have come to find out that Shalonda Mixon, the sister of Joe Mixon, has been named a suspect with one other in the shooting incident. But we don't know more about it. We don't know what was happening. It sounded like there's a lot of conflicting stories. Joe Mixon's trainer is the one that called the police initially. But Joe Mixon appears uninvolved with this. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. As of now, Joe Mixon does not seem to be a person of interest in this shooting, which just goes to show why we don't report on this stuff when it's happening in real time. Because there was a lot of irresponsible reporting about this situation with Joe Mixon. Just a lot of people making assumptions because some made up account with 1,000 followers that just doesn't matter, that no one has ever listened to. They say, well, there was a shooting near Joe Mixon's house. It was Joe Mixon. He did it. I can confirm. And then it comes out, nah, that's not what happened. That's not the story. Okay. Why did we just get whipped up into a frenzy over this 1,000 follower account making up lies? Why did we get into a frenzy that Hollywood Brown was retiring to be a professional gamer because some account with 1,000 followers said so? You got to trust your sources. You got to listen to Player Profiler because we're not going to be irresponsible with this reporting. We're going to tell you what people are saying. A lot of the times we're going to laugh at what people are saying. But when it comes to serious issues of this nature, of criminality, of lawsuits, we're going to wait until our ducks are in a row before reporting on it because we don't want to do you or the people we're reporting on a disservice. But anyways, the Cincinnati Bengals, they'll be back with Joe Burrow. They'll be back potentially with Joe Mixon. The thing with Joe Mixon is they could save $10 million by cutting him as a post-June 1st cut, $7.2 million if they were to cut him now. And they might. They really might. They would get up to $40 million. And given this running back class, I couldn't blame the Bengals for moving on from Joe Mixon. But it's getting a little late to do that because you're going to need a replacement for Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine also a free agent. So if Joe Mixon is going to get cut, it's going to happen within the next couple days. It's going to happen before free agency. Otherwise, I expect Mixon to be a part of this team. And again, the Bengals have a lot of money, $34.6 million. That is fifth in the NFL, third in the AFC. And there's other ways aside from Joe Mixon that they can clear up more. They can cut La'el Collins, save $6 million or $7.7 million, depending on when he is cut. Trey Hendrickson, they can save $10 or $12 million by cutting him. Sam Hubbard, they can save $4 or $8 million. DJ Reader can save $11 million. Tyler Boyd, they can save $8.9 million. But again, why is a team that is fifth in the NFL in cap just cutting people to cutting talented players? It could happen with La'el Collins because of the injury, and they might not expect him to be ready, but they're not cutting star defensive linemen just to cut him. So if the Bengals do decide to redo these deals, Trey Hendrickson, they can restructure $5.8 million. Sam Hubbard, $4.4 million. Restructure BJ Hill for $3.1 million. Restructure Alex Kappa for $3.2 million. So there's ways that the Bengals can find even more money. And they're going to free up a small amount because T. Higgins isn't breaking the bank right now as a second-round pick. Not going to free up a crazy amount of cap space. Same with Joe Burrow. He's still going into year 4. So he gets a little bit of a jump in salary, but still, these rookie contracts aren't what they used to be. And so those extensions will save the Bengals money, but not a crazy amount. But those extensions are going to happen. Everyone knows Joe Burrow is going to be extended. It's going to happen with T. Higgins too, though. Joe Burrow is rumored to be willing to work his contract out to make sure that Higgins and Jamar Chase can get long-term deals. Jamar Chase also going to be getting a long-term deal next offseason because he's not eligible for an extension just yet. I'm telling you, much like the Philadelphia Eagles, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have their core together. Now, they need another member of that core. Tyler Boyd very well could be gone after this season. It's final year of his deal. They may not be able to pay him. And that would suck. But Tyler Boyd is also, I don't want to say replaceable, but you catch my drift. You got Higgins. You got Chase. If you can keep Boyd around, great. But if not, you could become the Philadelphia Eagles and find your version of Dallas Goedert. You could find a tight end in the draft. Dalton Kincaid, potentially Luke Musgrave, one of those receiving tight ends, not George Washington, Darnell Washington. Or you could do both. You could get a receiving tight end. You could get a threat down the seam. You could keep Tyler Boyd around because the Eagles are being rumored to be looking for a third wide receiver to put Quez Watkins to wide receiver 4. This is the thing. When you have an elite quarterback and you surround him with weapons, we've talked about it. Josh Allen couldn't beat the Bengals because they didn't have enough firepower. It was just him and Diggs. Dawson Knox is wide receiver 2. Not enough. Gabriel Davis is your third option. Not enough. You go from Dawson Knox to T. Higgins. You go from Gabe Davis to Tyler Boyd. And yes, Tyler Boyd is way, way, way better than Gabriel Davis. This is the difference between the Bengals and the Bills. With Kansas City, they have worse weapons all around than the Bengals, but they've got elite Travis Kelce, and they've got enough weapons. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a threat. Juju's a threat. Kadarius Toney's a threat. They're not on the level of the Bengals, but they're still threats. And this is why in the AFC, it's going to be Kansas City. It's going to be the Bengals. The Chargers, they're cursed, but maybe the Chargers can get into there because it's all about your weapons. It's all about your offense at this point in the NFL. Defense makes plays. You want key players stepping up in key moments on defense, but it's all about the offense. It's all about the offense. And this offense for the Cincinnati Bengals, it's going to be pretty much the same. They need a backup quarterback. Brandon Allen's a free agent. Got to figure out running back if Joe Mixon leaves because Samaje Perine's a free agent, but he could be re-signed on the cheap or they could upgrade. This is a thing when you've got continuity. You can keep the same guys, but still get better by adding more. Samaje Perine is replaced by, I don't know, some better pass catching back. It's not going to be Tony Pollard because he's franchise tagged, but there are a lot of options in free agency to upgrade on Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon even. Trent Taylor's the only free agent wide receiver 4 or 5 because Trent Irwin kind of took over for Trent Taylor. Hayden Hurst is a free agent. That one matters. Drew Sample, former second-round pick. Drew Sample drafted ahead of DK Metcalf was just silly. They did it. Could see them re-signing Hayden Hurst and drafting a tight end. That's what Bengals fans want at the very least. And then Max Sharping, who stepped in at right guard towards the end of the season when Alex Kappa went down. He's a free agent. So you got a backup guard, an RB, your third down back, and your tight end. That's it on offense that are free agents. Bengals are back. Bengals are good. And on defense, they've got some free agents, but again, they've got some money to spend. And the Bengals are really good at drafting their replacements a year early. So Jesse Bates, Von Bell, both of the safeties are free agents. The Bengals drafted 2 safeties last year. Dax Hill is expected to take over for Jesse Bates. They're hoping that Tyson Anderson, 5th-round pick out of Toledo, can take over for Von Bell. If not, this is a deep safety class in free agency. They may well sign someone else to just replace Von Bell, or they could re-sign him. At corner, Eli Apple. And Eli Apple, he gets a lot of unnecessary flack. I shouldn't say unnecessary. He deserves the flack. He brings it on himself, but people think Eli Apple sucks. And just because he gets burned from time to time, all corners get burned from time to time. Eli Apple had a solid end of the season. He really kept the Bengals going when Chidobe Awuzie went down. He's a free agent. Now, if Awuzie is healthy, it would be Awuzie and Cam Taylor-Britt on the outside. So I don't really expect Eli Apple to re-sign. I don't expect Jermaine Pratt to be re-signed because this is what happens when you have to pay all of these stars. Sometimes you have to let go of good players like Jermaine Pratt. They'll still have Logan Wilson, and they'll bring in Akeem Davis-Gaither, I believe. He's the, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and they got Marcus Bailey too. Guys they've drafted preparing for this. So the Cincinnati Bengals, I am excited. The Cincinnati Bengals are here to stay. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a threat as long as Joe Burrow is their quarterback. This is the beauty of having a Joe Burrow. This is the beauty of having a franchise quarterback, because you can build and build and build and just redo his contract. Even after it's signed, you can restructure. Patrick Mahomes has the best deal in all of football. He signed for how many more years? 8 more years, something like that. And they can just keep redoing his contract because they know, hey, we've got Patrick Mahomes. We're always in line for a Super Bowl. Let's restructure. Let's kick the can down the road. And the Bengals don't even have to do that right now because they've got so much money. The Cincinnati Bengals have gone from one of the worst teams, worst franchises in the NFL to one of the best in short order. The offensive line can still improve. They invested a lot in the offensive line this past offseason. They signed Lael Collins. They brought in Ted Karras. They brought in Alex Kappa. Cordell Volson was drafted. Only Jonah Williams was a returning starter at left tackle. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way it worked out for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City invests heavily in their offensive line, and they all stay healthy, and they're good. The Bengals invest heavily in their offensive line. They start clicking towards the end of the season, but then Lael Collins goes down. Alex Kappa goes down. And it's not the same. Jonah Williams goes down. But they still played pretty well with all backups. They still made the AFC Championship with second-string offensive linemen across the board. And on the defense, this is an opportunistic defense. They're still going to have a strong pass rush. If Daxton Hill can work out in the secondary, they're still going to have a strong defense. What's not to love about the Cincinnati Bengals? How do you not embrace the Cincinnati Bengals at this point? And I know I'm a homer. I know I've said that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I'm digging in on that take, but mark my words, the Cincinnati Bengals will be competing for a Super Bowl in short order, and I'm not going to be surprised when the Cincinnati Bengals win the Super Bowl this year.